Regisseur, Marc Sänger. Und natürlich mein Kollege Harry Stamm.
Mark, please have a seat.
Thank you.
Eine Frage habe ich in English. Who's all seen Gravity yet? Everybody. Oh, there's one. Didn't see it. No, I'm just kidding. Mark, thank you so much for coming here. I think the most interesting question is, can you tell us a little bit about your path of becoming an editor?
Ironically for me, and my career started in lots of different other departments. I already knew that I wanted to be an editor when I was very, very young. But when I was finally lucky enough, I worked my way up through all of these other departments, trying to get a broad knowledge and understanding of the industry that I thought I knew a lot about, having always wanted to be in it, but really wanted to understand more of the people and the processes. So I did that for about probably maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 years. I don't know. It was a long time ago. And then I ended up as an assistant editor working with film in the days of film, just at a time when film or linear editing was becoming something of the past. And so my training was on film, which I'm very pleased about, because I think that certainly, the fundamental basics of media composer and, non-linear systems, they are based in that film knowledge and understanding, that film world. And so I think it was it's a privilege to have had an education in that world and then graduated into the non-linear world. But it was a difficult time because some of the editors who had, were working at the time had always worked on film, and they either embraced non-linear or they didn't. And I think I remember a lot of them at the time with thinking it would be a fad, But as it turned out, they had to either jump on the bandwagon or they didn't get employed. And so for me, it was I was very, very lucky. My first trainee job was getting the teas for the cutting rooms on a James Bond movie, which had been, when I was a kid making Super 8 movies with my brother. Some of those were little James Bond movies. And so for me, though that evolution continues, for me, part of the privilege of working on Gravity was a kind of a culmination of my experiences and my compatriots' experiences all coming together for that movie. So it's downhill all the way from here.
So do we have any questions from you guys? Dare yourself. Here we go.
Have you always been editing on Avid? And in this film, which version of the Media Composer did you use? Or did you change versions? And were there any tools that came then which you liked very much, which you used?
Does he work for Avid?
No. I like that question.
I've always worked on Media Composer because Media Composer, for me, has always been the tried and tested route. And by the way, I was a big fan of Final Cut Pro. But something happened with Final Cut Pro, I don't know if any of the editors are in the audience, where they decided to go for more of a consumer market and less of a pro market. I don't know anybody anymore who's cutting on. It may be that there are other features being cut on other types of software, but certainly for me, in a realm where you can't afford to have bugs and machines going down and unreliability with the media, you just need to be able to go in because the director's on his way over. He can't walk over and you have to say, I'm really sorry, but my assistant was running that scene, and because he tried to run it and I tried to run it at the same time, there was a problem. And you can't have that. You need something that is stable enough and reliable enough and concrete enough that you are going to be able to do your job. So the director never needs to think about this thing called Avid or Media Composer. He just needs to come in and use the tool as it's designed, which is to tell his story. And to answer your question about versions, we started Gravity a long time ago. And when we started, we made a decision that we weren't going to fix something if it isn't broken. And so we stayed on, it was either, my assistant will tell me, but it was either version 4.5 or 5 for 3 years. And so when we came out the other side of that, and suddenly, as I say, Media Composer had suddenly gone into this strange new territory, I had a meeting with one of the guys from Avid at Pinewood Studios, and I said, "Fuck, I really need to learn what's happening with this," because I was history, and it had evolved so quickly while we had been making that film, more so than it had ever done before, and it had overtaken everything else. That's the problem is you go off and do a movie. By the time if you don't keep up with things, then technology will overtake you, and I'll be cutting on film.
So you did mention you started off on a James Bond movie. Do you want to mention some of the movies that you worked on? I don't know if everybody knows. You want to share?
Yeah,
that?
I mean, as an assistant or as a visual effects editor, I have worked on 3 James Bond movies. As my brother likes to say, it's not my opinion, I hasten to add, but he says the 3 shit ones before Daniel Craig started. Then I worked on 2 of the Mummy movies, The Mummy and The Mummy Returns. I worked with directors as diverse as Wolfgang Peterson on Troy, or Atta Magoyan on Felicia's Journey, or my man, it's all getting a bit hazy now. What else? Oh, I worked with Tim Burton 3 times. I worked on Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Sweeney Todd, and Alice in Wonderland. And then I'd gone off and done some sort of independent British pictures like Stormbreaker. So kind of the thing for me was nice in editorial is either, I could do the assisting work. Before I was an editor, I could be an assistant, or I could do the visual effects editing work. I was very lucky in that I could chop and change, one job after the other, which makes it made more of a sort of a diverse, brought a bit of diversity to the work, which probably it didn't mean that I kept my hair, but it did mean that I kept my sanity.
Great. Coming back to Gravity, actually, I would, like to know a little more about the challenges that you had. I mean, this is an epic movie. It's fantastic. The visuals are absolutely great. Some of the edits I couldn't even see that you've done. It's just fantastic. What were the challenges that you had in the cutting room? Well,
the initial challenge is that the script is a very simplistic, beautiful script, but it is obviously it's only when Alfonso started to explain how he saw the movie coming together that we, as a team, realized that to execute it would be unlike anything anybody had ever attempted before. And it would either be a terrific challenge that we would succeed in, or it would be an utter disaster. And so, it's a testament to a filmmaker like Alfonso Cuarón, that, they're not scared of trying that. Because, the odds are against you in making a movie in the first place. But when you want to make something as audacious and as challenging as this one, you really do have to want to break new ground, and that is why his films are all the films that they are, because he consistently does that. So for us, basically, it became clear early on that we would be blurring the lines between pre-production, production, and post-production, in that we would all be coming together to work out how to solve these problems that we were being presented with early on, and that then we realized that we would have to be making a very concise version of the edited movie before we started shooting. And the reason for that was because Alfonso wanted the actors to be, this not to be one big CG, computer-generated movie. He wanted performances in there. And in order to light the actors and put them in an environment that we could do the digital work on afterwards, we had to do a lot of planning before we shot them. And the poor actors turn up and they've got to wear all this hardware and they've got to be moving around in a sort of horrible alien environment and still delivering these performances. And on top of that, they turn up and they get shown this sort of very stagnant edit of an animated together with my performance in there and my persistence dialogue in there. And the fact that George and Sandra were able to deliver performances within the environments that they were placed is staggering. If you just thankfully you completely, the reason you buy the movie is because they are driving your belief in the movie, and they are the ones who are absorbing you into the film. If you saw the version of the cut, which does exist, where there's no visual effects, you would be blown away by their work. After 18 months of cutting the movie together in animated form, they turn up and they then gave life to the movie. And suddenly we could see, as we suspected, we could see we were going to have to make some changes because the performances that they'd given are what was driving the film. And so we couldn't just strictly adhere to what we had done in pre-production. And so all of those decisions we'd made with some of the post-production guys up front then were able to help us out with the real post-production down at the end. And because of that collaborative experience from beginning to end, where guys who would normally just be brought on at the end were brought on at the beginning to answer questions, we went in and were between the whole team, were able to think of the process of making the film from a different perspective than before, and that is what drove us towards the end. And by the way, it was only it's only towards the end that you start to think, okay, maybe we're going to be okay. And then we didn't even know whether or not we would go and watch it, but we certainly felt that that 3-year process. It's not like a year and you think, phew. 3 years in, you think, okay, maybe we're okay. So
Right.
that was kind of it.
So you did the pre-visuals first, and you showed the whole movie basically, right, in pre-visuals. Mm-hmm. How did you edit it then? When you received the dailies each day, did you have like a layout? Looking at the timeline here, I don't know, do you have like the pre-visuals on below and then you edit on top, or did you just go in freshly and newly and just do your thing?
Well, the thing is that Alfonso, he knows what he wants to get out of any given sequence from the word go, and that doesn't change. So he's not a director who is always umming and ahhing over the direction the scene should take. He knows very, very clearly. So what would happen is but the thing is, if you are blocking a lot of the movie before shooting, some of the decisions you'd be normally making on the stage, or based upon the light and how the scene has worked out physically, those are decisions that you have to be making. First of all, with storyboards, cutting the thing together with storyboards, adjusting timings, flipping those storyboards around using the Media Composer effects palette, reversing them, retiming. You can see a lot of retimes here. If anybody who understands the Media Composer icons, these little, this sort of diagonal, this thing. Whoa, that thing there. What is that? A parallelogram. The parallelogram thing. That those scenes that look like they're long shots are actually. So the opening shot of the movie is 11 and a half minutes or something. And looks like it's the easiest day for the editor because why wouldn't you just chop the boards off and cut it in? But that's 3 years work editorial working with the director and the visual effects guys and the sound guys and everything to get you there, because we break the movie down into beats. And I'll stand for a second. I can kind of show you every time you see a little title up there, that's a moment that we've decreed is a beat in the scene, and that beat can extend or contract. Thank you. Can extend or contract depending upon what is driving the story at that given moment. And early on, of course, before there's a performance in there, you think that it will work with one kind of shape, the highs and the lows of the scene. Once you get a performance in there, you realize, well, you got it all wrong. You've got to go back and play with that. So the initial stages here, you're seeing some animation that they've delivered that I've gone through with the director, and we've decided, we need to speed that section up. Let's speed that section up or slow that section down. And so you're playing with the length of the scene. Underneath that, you're playing with the dialogue or moving it around. When a character is not facing camera, you can play around with the timing of the dialogue. And then as we do that, we would then supply that back to the visual effects guys, who would then reblock the scene or sections of the scene, at which point we would then replace these with updated sections. And then that process went on for years, because you are constantly, as I said, you have a period before the actors arrive where you don't have any point of reference as to how the scene will play out. Once they arrive, then it becomes much more clearer. And then if I've got this right, you'll see that this isn't at a final stage, but this is in the latter stages, the same sequence. You can see gradually what began as 8 or 9 different tracks with lots of time warping and respeeding and flipping of shots and what have you. Gradually, as time went by, the animators and the scene came together. The animators would deliver longer and longer chunks, and we would get rid of all of the earlier versions. And then finally, this was pretty much delivered as one long shot. But it started off, so in the case of the opening shot of the movie, it started off as 250 and in the beats, and in the end was like 120 beats. But as to all intents and purposes, it's one long shot. And by the way, the reason for that is, there you go. The reason for that is not, some gimmick that we're going to open the movie with a long shot. It's because, certainly for me at least, the answer to the reason why that shot is in the movie is the audience is presented with the environment that they will be placed in for the next 90 minutes. And the greatest fun you can have as a crew member on a film like this is when you sit with an audience for the first time, and there's the shuffling and there's the popcorn, and then there's the phones and the and then the first shot comes up, and gradually I can remain in my seat because I know what's happening, but everybody else is doing this. And then you know that you've that's for anybody working on something, if you feel like you've done it, you've got it right. It's the real truth is in that experience when an audience does react that way.
So I think collaboration with the effect team is one of the key points, and the other point, I mean, how technical are you, or would you describe yourself as a technical guy?
No, not compared to the people that I was working with on the film. Those really are technical and creative geniuses. For me, I get a broad understanding of, I know how this works, I know how editorial works, and I know how a conventional visual effects pipeline works. But in editorial, you're there ultimately. I mean, any department on a film, you are there to deliver a story, to tell a story. And if you are, for me, it is much more important to understand what I know to deliver the creative aspects of that story. And so I only know as much as I really need to know technically about anybody else's job, because I'll just get confused. But yes, certainly you need to have a mutual understanding and respect of what other people are doing, because your work affects theirs and vice versa. But if we get too in depth technically, then I get confused very quickly.
So how does the collaboration work with the effect guys?
Well, there's different stages to that, but definitely, in the early stages, the director would say, work with me in the morning, and we'd work on one particular sequence, and then I would deliver that immediately to my team, who would prepare it and send the sequence of the Avid bin and the Avid media across to the visual effects facility, who would be receiving that just as the director leaves my place and Alfonso walks across to give them the brief on the same material. So he turns up just as they get it all on the system, and he briefs them on what we've been doing and how it affects, not editorially necessarily, but visually, or how it affects the story. They then have a conversation with him about, this is great because we've got some new animation for this scene, we'd like to show it to you. And they show those shots out of context, and he goes, great, these are new shots, they should go into this sequence. And so they then send those shots back to me, and Alfonso is making his way back over to editorial, and I'm gradually pulling together all of the dailies, and he turns up just as I've managed to see everything, and he says, right, I know what we're going to do, this is the new material. And I go, okay, and we work on that. And we get to the end of that sequence, and the same thing starts again. And that's the only way that we could achieve the movie, is to be constantly communicating. And it wasn't just with the visual effects guys, it was, these changes, because the sound and the music are all very as part of the DNA of the film as anything, even though we had applied the same that thinking to the visual effects guys at the beginning, as soon as the sound and the composer came on, we would apply the same methodology. So the changes we were making, they would have to be kept in the loop immediately, because the sound and the music are so much a part of the film. If we just went around willy-nilly just updating them every so often, they wouldn't have been given the opportunity to deliver the work to the level that they did. So it was basically an absolute nightmare.
So, are there any specific functionality in Media Composer that helps you surviving the whole story?
Certainly in a film like this, the trickiest part is, most movies, you go on to, whether or not it's a documentary, whether or not it's a fiction, or whether or not it's a small indie piece or whatever, normally they run about a year. Gravity, we started, and we didn't know if we'd get the green light to go ahead, and so we were starting very early on, and so we had no end date. And so when you're working without an end date, that's kind of alien to most of us. And normally what you can see where you start here, you finish, you start shooting here, you finish shooting here, you've got a teaser trailer to get out, you've got a public screening, you have all these milestones ahead of you. We had none of that. And for an eternity, we had none of that. What that means is that for a team, focus is the hardest thing to maintain, because you can be going back in and out of scenes and moments and for years. And it's necessary in order to bring this particular project together. It was absolutely necessary. But every day going into that realm and reminding yourself to stand back and to look at the overall picture of the movie, in as rudimentary a form as it was certainly for me, that's the biggest challenge, was to be able to stand back and go, okay, this is the film. And as I was saying it to some guys this morning, as an editor, certainly it sounds like it's obvious, but to me, it's something that I always have to pinch myself every single day to do, and that is come in and look at the work that was done yesterday from the point of view of somebody who's watching it for the first time. And then if you do that every single day, then you can then give yourself some perspective, and hopefully that benefits the film rather than if you stagnate, then the film, I think, as well, all the collaborators, if they stagnate, then the film will stagnate.
And now that some time has passed, would you change anything? Would you do anything differently, or tell a scene differently?
I don't really need to go back and watch it again to work that out. So, to answer your question properly, I remember watching it. I can remember the tough days and the less tough days, but I don't look at it in terms of I wish we'd got a chance to do that, and because over that amount of time with Alfonso Cuarón at the helm, that's not really going to happen. That's not to say necessarily he may feel that there are moments in there, but for us, certainly I feel like it's a fairly unique situation where you can stand back and go, you know what, I'm not going to watch it again because I feel that we did okay, and if I watch it again, then I might start picking it apart, but I don't think I will.
Hi, I would like to ask if you could tell us a bit more about the relationship between the editor and the director. How does it work for you in the editing room? Has there been a situation where you think that a director chose wrong, that she or he wants to put in a movie something that you feel no?
The whole point of the editor and director being kind of a separate thing for me is that you're there to discuss ideas, and you are, sometimes the director have a very clear idea, and it's whether or not you agree with it or don't agree with it. Your job is to facilitate that idea, to make that idea happen. And often you can think, I'm not sure that's going to work, and then when you see it, you think, oh, okay, it really does work. But you're there not to argue with the director, but to translate what they have in their head onto the screen, and to facilitate that, but also to discuss options and to be a sounding board for the director. And sometimes some directors will come in and like they're not sure about something. In that situation, the balance will shift, and you'll go, well, look, let me have a go at it. And they'll go, fine, and they'll storm out because they've got some issue going on set. And then hopefully the next day you can come in and show them something where hopefully you've solved that issue for them. And to me, that's what we're there for as editors, is to be a collaborator, not to argue, well, I think I know better than you, because certainly with the guys that I work with, there's no way that I know better than them. But more to help them through the war of filmmaking, because it's a trial. If we can create an environment where the director can come in away from everything else that they're dealing with and see editorial as a safe haven where they can talk through everything, get it off their chest so that creatively they're focused, and throw ideas around in that environment, then we succeed.
Great. Mark, thank you so much. It's fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.